very slow rock song.
It's like a Bad Company song or something.
Steve doesn't know Stars, so he's just very confused. And
I don't listen
So we're boring the crap out of Steve now. Okay.
I mean, welcome to most episodes of this podcast.
Yeah.
Like, Steve, check out this old band. Like, what? This is old people music, Greg.
Old people music.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer for Lipstick.
I'm Steve. I'm the bassist from Lipstick.
And welcome to the Lipstick panel. Today on the Lipstick panel, we are talking about Al Green's Let's Stay Together, a classic album, one of the sexiest albums ever recorded. And what is sexier than Al Green? Not much. But what is one of the least sexy things in existence? Podcasting. So here we are to talk about something sexy in an incredibly unsexy way.
Ooh, contrast.
Although our guest is a very sexy man, we have Mr. Brad Page from I'm in Love with That Song podcast, one of our new Rockin' Pod friends. So really glad to bring you on the show. I've been really enjoying your episodes. This is going to be a bit longer than your normal show, but we're really glad to have you. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we were just chatting before the show about how we met at Rockin' Pod, which was fantastic, great event. We could talk about Rockin' Pod all day, but we're here to talk about Al Green. So Steve is he's Canadian.
Hey.
He is. This
isn't Gordon Lightfoot at all.
Yeah. And he does not listen to he hates the blues.
Yep.
Okay.
And he doesn't really listen to any like R&B or jazz. The only jazz he listens to is jazz metal.
Right.
And so I'm like, Steve, you need a little bit more soul in your life. And I realize, we've been covering exclusively white artists on the show. Loudness is Japanese.
James Iha
James Iha.
Of some sort of Asian descent. I don't remember specifically.
But, it's time, we covered something outside of the rock realm, do something different. But this is a record, I've loved for years, and I thought would be a really nice change of pace for the show, do something different, but still something great. So ordinarily what we do on the Lipstick panel, we talk individually about our histories with the artist and the album at hand. So I want to go ahead and start with Brad. Tell us a little bit about your history with being a fan of Al Green, your relationship with this album, and just your general thoughts on it before we get started.
Sure. Well, I grew up in the 70s, so I'm a hair older than you guys.
Just a hair.
Just a hair. Like many people, my entryway into rock and roll was Kiss. I'm sure you've heard that a lot. And
not once on this show. Not once.
This podcast is somewhat of a welcome change for your Kiss-tastic episodes. They always say when you want to talk about a classic soul record, you always go to the old white guy from New Hampshire, because that's so thanks for inviting me to do this record. But somewhere along the line, amongst the hard rock and the progressive rock, I just grew a real love for funk and soul music. There's just something so pure about it, and the energy and the positivity of it. It's always moved me, and this is just a great record front to back. If you're going to start looking at soul music, it's hard to find a better place to begin with than Al Green. So yeah, I just kind of grew up listening to this kind of stuff along with the hard rock and the prog rock.
So Steve, how about you? What's your experience with soul music and Al Green, if you have any experience?
Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, Greg told me, Steve, you need more soul, and handed me a copy of this CD, and I listened to it once and said, a little bit slow and sparse and not really my thing, and gave it back to him. And then a week ago, he's like, all right, Steve, we're doing an episode, and handed this CD to me again, not realizing that I already listened to it. So then I listened to it again, critically this time, actually like really trying to listen to the songs and hear what was going on with them. And I liked it even less.
Wow.
And then I was like, well, hold on. Let's look at what Al Green has done since then and see if Questlove fixes it. And it did. I listened to several songs from his most recent album and was like, oh, these are better.
All right, so
Wow.
as someone who listened to that most recent record, I disagree, but we'll get into that. So my experience with Al Green, as you were saying earlier, a lot of us rockers got into rock bands because of Kiss. I am one of those people, except it's much weirder because that was in 2004 for me and I was 14. So, like, the timeline is a bit odd on that, but regardless, I'm still one of those guys who got into rock music because of Kiss and got into all kinds of hard rock bands, specifically like 70s and 80s hard rock. So, your deep, everyone from Deep Purple to Def Leppard, all the D bands, as it were.
D bands.
But
He listens to a lot of D beat. No, he doesn't.
But I tried to have an expansive musical experience, so I tried to listen to stuff from different genres. And I had a friend of mine in high school who was really into old school soul and R&B, and would be like, "Greg Troyan, your taste in music is shit. Listen to some Barry White instead." And I would listen to Barry White. I'm like, "Yeah, this is really good. I still like the stuff I like, but I like the stuff you're showing me too." And so I became really familiar with a lot of that kind of stuff, like, your Barry Whites, Marvin Gaye, Al Green, a lot of funk and soul too. So a lot of like Parliament, Funkadelic, all that
Sure.
stuff. And to me, I held those bands in the same regard I held like a more rock band of the era. So
Yeah, I'm with you.
you could put Sly and the Family Stone, and I would say they're just as important musically as, Van Halen. Like, to
Gotcha.
me, I have equal respect for the bands. I might like one band more than the other, but I felt like a lot of those bands had my respect the way that a lot of, like, bands that came after them didn't have my respect. So I didn't really respect a band like Green Day in high school and thought they were terrible. And I've since recanted on that, and now I do respect the band, but I've always had a lot of respect for this kind of music, a lot of adoration for this kind of music, and I enjoyed listening to Al Green quite a bit. I own a legal copy of this CD, but I'll admit, back in high school, I torrented some Al Green and, sampled a lot of the catalog that way, and really enjoyed like the diversity of his cuts and loved the gospel stuff. Loved his cover of "I Want to Hold Your Hand." The Beatles being my favorite band, I just loved his rendition of it. And I thought it was really cool when I was looking through like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame website and saw that Al Green was inducted, and I said, "Yes, this guy deserves to be in there. This is great." And so I just always had a lot of respect for this guy as an artist and hold him in very high esteem. And disappointed that Steve doesn't like it, but I respect his honesty. And I'm really looking forward to talking about a record I've had for a long, long time and have loved for a long, long time. So yeah,
Let's
you
see
guys.
what happens.
All right.
So for first-time listeners of the show, the way that this works is the three of us here, all of the panelists, vote on the songs from best to least best, because there's not a bad song on this record, Steve. And so it's a 9-song album, so the best song would get 9 points. The least best song would get 1 point. So then we add up the votes of the panelists and then come up with a ranking to decide what is the best song on this album as collectively chosen by us. So we're going to go from the bottom up, and coming in as the least best song on Let's Stay Together by Al Green, we have La La for You.
Yeah, this is my least favorite song on the record. It's kind of interesting musically, but there's not much of a vocal melody for the verse, and I have a hard time really finding a chorus in it, if you know what I mean. It's the second track on the album, and I always thought that was kind of an odd choice to put this one second. It does have a cool piano break in it. I think it's at the beginning and also about a minute 20 into it. There's a little break with the piano. That's kind of cool. That's about the closest you get on this record to having any kind of solos. There's no guitar solos, no piano or keyboard solos, no saxophone solos. This record is all about the rhythm section, the tightness of the band, and the vocal performances. But yeah, this would be my least favorite track on the record.
Yeah, one of the things I found interesting about R&B, comparing it to, let's say, rock of the same era, I think R&B vocalists, were a bit braver about straying from vocal melody, in the sense that the verse melody would fluctuate often pretty wildly between verse to verse. And so you couldn't necessarily get lulled into that comfortable state you would in a rock song where they'd be same melody between verse to verse with maybe a couple changes. Like, I found this out one time when I tried to cover Marvin Gaye with a local band I was in Cleveland, and the stuff he does with melodies are all over the place. And so this song has a little bit of that, but not to the extremeness of, let's say, a Marvin Gaye song of the same era.
Sure.
What I'll say about this song is, when you're comparing it like song by song in the sense of shuffle, like if you were to put this album on the shuffle, then I would agree this one comes towards the bottom. However, I think this it has a good sense of momentum of getting the record going, where it feels like a transition track in a lot of ways, where it helps set the atmosphere and mood for the album and keeps a certain momentum going, even though the song itself is a little bit like weaker of a song. It helps glue the album together into some kind of cohesion. And I do like the piano line a lot, and I think it's a good intro. And it's, once again, not a bad song on this record, but I think it serves its place as a momentum builder. It helps it make an album listening experience, like Gish by the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah. You're like, Steve looks bored. Let me make him hit some buttons.
Anyone got a chair? I'm gonna chuck it at a chicken chaser.
Yeah, every time I mention Gish, I get hit with a steel chair. Which, by the way, Steve, you'll appreciate this. I've actually come to appreciate that boring record.
So,
I've realized
No
it's
comment.
with Gish, I've realized it's not as bad as I gave it. It's a terrible first Smashing Pumpkins album to listen to. Like, if you want to be introduced to the band, it is the wrong record to start with. But as I become a fan of the band, like, oh, this is still the Last Place album, but I appreciate this a bit more. But yeah, back to this record.
So I like that you brought up the idea of putting this album on shuffle and this song being weaker for that. My observation with this is that this album, at this point in the album listening to it was when I realized that this was clearly an album that was designed to be listened to on a stereo system and not on headphones. It's almost as if they didn't anticipate in 1972 that in 40 some odd years, everybody would be walking around with their entire music library stuffed into tiny little earbuds. And so this song really got hurt by listening to it on headphones, let alone shuffle technology.
Yeah, this would definitely not go well with that. And the thing is, a lot of these old albums, like my dad had a really badass sound system, and if you put a record on a really badass sound system, it's going to sound way better than a CD on headphones. Like, and music back then was made for badass sound systems. And so this is the kind of record you put on when you're alone with your lady, want to have a nice romantic evening at home. You put on some Al Green, you slow dance together in the living room, and then whatever happens after that. But this is a great record for that.
This is a record you put into earbuds while in the office.
Yeah, not as great in that scenario. But
the office is very sexy.
You know what? It's still great for that, because I was listening to this album at the office this week, and I was having a great time. I was bobbing my head. I've got Al Green. I've got a picture of Al Green actually on my cubicle because I decided my cubicle needed more soul.
Oh, there you go. That's your first step.
Yeah, that's sort of a truism right there. My cubicle needs more soul.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any way to get enough soul into a cubicle, but you got a good start there.
Tiny desk concert?
When you talk about getting back to the vocal melody, you are correct in that R&B and soul singers tend to stray a lot further from what would be a straight vocal melody than traditional rock singers. I think a big part of that is because R&B singers frankly tend to be better, more skilled vocalists than your average rock singer. But there's the old cliche about first you have to have a rule before you break it. I think you have to have a really good melody before you start screwing with it. I think that's partly where this song falls down. It just doesn't have a great melody. But it's still a good performance by Al Green. It's hard to find a bad Al Green vocal performance.
Well, any other comments on this one before we move on to the next track?
Just that this track, like most, all but 2 songs on this record were written or co-written by Al Green. So unlike a lot of soul singers that were more interpreters rather than composers, he wrote a lot of his own material. So let's make note of that.
Yeah, I will say this about Al Green as a composer. I don't think he's necessarily as strong of a composer as he is a performer. I think
Sure.
he's, as a composer, I think is a pretty middle ground. I think he really needs additional assistance to really compose great material. I think he's not a great writer on his own. Not to say he's not bad, but he's not on the...
He just really needs a Questlove or some Bee Gees.
Yeah,
Well, he's got a narrow wheelhouse, for lack of a better expression. He works in a pretty narrow range of the types of songs he writes. There's sort of a fast song and a slow song, and anything he's composed, they tend to sound somewhat similar, which is not uncommon for R&B of this era. But he's not like a Lennon or McCartney that can write in multiple different kinds of styles. You know what I mean? He's not a Bowie or somebody who dabbles in a lot of different textures, and pretty much all of his stuff is within a fairly narrow range that he's working with. But again, I don't think these guys necessarily thought so much about the structure of the songs. Their songs are vehicles in which to deliver a great vocal performance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say great vocalist as a writer, pretty limited. I think that's the problem, is because when I compare, let's say I'm comparing him to another guy who doesn't write his own material, he's definitely on par and superior to a lot of them. But when I'm comparing him to, let's say, like a Prince, a guy who does write his own material, he definitely falls short in that aspect as a writer, as a guy who, I consider myself primarily a songwriter and a mediocre at best vocalist. And so Al Green, I think, is a much better performer than me, but I think I would say I'm a better writer than Al Green. But in terms of what actually matters, well, hey, he's the one who's sold millions of records and had #1 singles, and I'm slumming it in local bands. So take that as you will.
You're the one who with his poster in your cubicle.
Right. Al Green does not have a poster of me in his cubicle, which would be weird because that'd be at a church.
You have to take your hat off in church.
That's true. So next up on the list, we have Judy.
All right, I'm done talking about this great song.
There you go. That is the proper drop to use because it's a great song, Steve. As I'm the only one who really defended it. Next up on the list is Judy.
Yeah, Judy. This is another solo Al Green composition. It's the 8th track on the album, so it's kind of buried towards the end of the record. I had it number 6 on my list, so it wasn't quite at the bottom. It was sort of in the middle of my list. But yeah, it's another song that does not have a super strong melody and not a real strong chorus. It is a nice groove, though. That's where it won points for me, because I just think it has a pretty cool groove.
Yeah, I would say melodically it's probably the weakest on the album by a pretty wide margin. And the big saving grace of this song is a really good string arrangement. But otherwise, it's probably the most forgettable track. It's still not bad, but for me, it was a pretty easy last place.
Yeah, I can see that.
How about you, Steven?
I put this one low mids. Mostly like these songs blurred together a little bit to me because it's not really my genre. This one got docked a few points just because of the super abrupt start. I felt was a poor arrangement choice.
Oh, see, I thought the start was pretty rad. I thought that was one of the cooler parts of it.
Yeah, I don't know. This music isn't heavy enough for like aggressive, abrupt starts. Ease your way into it.
So, Steve, if this song was like 20% faster, recorded in the 90s with electric guitars and sung by Billy Joe Armstrong, would it be better?
Yeah, I mean, I guess marginally. I don't know. Like Billy Joe Armstrong, he already does enough of that trying desperately to be the Beatles thing, trying desperately to be Al Green. I don't know that would be a good look for him.
I think that's just going to
Yeah.
be my new marker of like, would this make the song better?
Would a pop punk cover of the song be better? I don't. Probably, yeah. Let's have some 41 do it. I think they'd do a much better job.
Oof.
They'd play it faster.
I'm sensing some disagreement between the Skype feeds on Sum 41.
Let's move on.
Yeah,
Look,
there's
again, I'm Canadian. I know Gordon Lightfoot, Sum 41, and Celine Dion.
and
Rush. Where's your Rush? How dare you?
what about Saga, bro?
Yeah.
Triumph, Rick Emmett, anybody?
Right? Rick Emmett? Give Rick Emmett some props.
Look, I'll say this: one of the best shows I've ever seen was Rick Emmett and his buddy doing like just a 2 acoustic guitar show at a coffee shop. There was like 20 people there, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. The guy was insane on an acoustic
right.
guitar, and still a great vocalist. This was like 2008, 2009, one of the best shows I've ever seen, and just showed, a great song is a great song no matter what the setting, and a great player is a great player. And he was a great singer, great player, great lighter. That guy, trifecta.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
Back to Al Green. All right, so next up on the list we have Old Time Lovin'.
This one is kind of a generic soul ballad. I had this number 8 on my list, so it was my second least favorite track. It's the 5th track on the album, so it's another one that's buried in the middle of the record, which is kind of typically where you stick these kind of things. You want to start strong and end strong, and nobody remembers what's in the middle, right?
There's also some technical reasons for it that when you're pressing to vinyl, you don't want a lot of dynamic contrast and volume towards the center of the grooves, because it's more likely to skip.
Right. Yeah, it's another Al Green solo composition.
I think, what's weird about this one is that it is so standard, and that is such a standard blues soul ballad, and there's not necessarily anything distinct or unique about it, but I really like it. I can't like justify my like of it as easy as I can some of the other tracks. I'm like, yes, this is a slow blues ballad, been done a million times before. This melody, it's not doing anything new, not doing anything unique, but you know what? He's doing it well. I like those backing vocals, and it's just it works well for me. It's just it's called Old Time Lovin'. So he's looking for love, like in the days of his past. So he's thinking old school. He wants some old school lovin'. So he's doing an old school song.
This is about schools. How old was he at the time?
Well, you know what I'm saying, old school, as in like you know what I'm saying. And so for me, I get it. He's going retro as he's pining for that retro kind of lovin'. So I dig it. I think it's a cool little ballad.
He was like 26 when this album came out.
I can see where you're coming from. I think that if this kind of music is your jam, if you were to isolate this track by itself, it's a great track. I think compared to some of the other stronger things on the record, I think that's where it maybe falls back for me. If I were just listening to a bunch of soul albums on shuffle and this one came up, I'd go, yeah, that's a great track. It's a great Al Green performance, etc. But compared to some of the other more stronger things on this record, I think that it just comes up a little short compared to some of the other ones. It is a little generic. Even the title, right? Old Time Lovin' could be a million different soul and even country songs, frankly, for a title.
My general thought on this song was, this album is already, kind of slow and soft overall. It didn't really need explicit ballads on top of that. I thought sort of the entire album is ballads, so an even balladier ballad seems unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I feel like this. You know how we were talking about with old, with the early Kiss records, you were talking about them wearing their influences on their sleeves, Steve.
Yep.
I feel like this is him just like wearing his influences on his Steve. On his
Steve.
Wearing his influences on his Steve. But him like harkening back to like Mahalia Jackson and stuff like that, and just really diving deep into his roots. I think that's where he was going with it, and I enjoy it for that reason. Like, I'm sensing a lot of enjoyment from his end in the track.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's having a good time.
Yeah, he's having a good time, and you know what? I'm having a good time. Steve's kind of bored, but whatever.
There were no Steves on this album.
It comes down to if this is your jam or not, if this is your kind of record or not. You're not going to get an Otis Redding or Wilson Pickett type of real up-tempo stacks type of groove from Al Green. He's much more laid back in his, that's not, his pocket is a different groove. Yeah. And you just either you like it or you don't, but that's the wheelhouse in which he works in, is more of a laid back. I hate that kind of quiet storm, that term you hear referred to certain R&B, but he's in a lot of ways kind of a progenitor of that make-out music.
I mean, yeah, there's a reason why my CDs are all alphabetical, except all my Al Green, Marvin Gaye, and Barry White are right next to each other. Like, it's alphabetical, and then they're all under S for Sexy Time.
Well, there you go.
So, next up on the list, the song that describes Steve's experience with this album, It Ain't No Fun to Me.
Wow.
Wait, is it Ain't No Fun to Me or Ain't No Fun to Be Me?
Ain't No Fun to Me.
Oh, I misread that.
So what number is this on the list?
So this is fourth from the bottom.
All right. Well, this is our biggest disagreement so far, because I had this number 3 on my list. I really like this track. It's the bluesiest song on the record for sure, which
Steve
is
hates
probably
the
why
blues.
Steve didn't bring it. Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say about that, man.
This looks like it was
I think
mostly
it's got a great groove, a great vocal, and a really good horn chart. It's another Al Green solo composition. It's the track that ends the album, and I thought it was a strong record ender. But again, if you're not a fan of the blues, you're not going to dig this one. But
Not
I
at
really
all.
like this one a lot.
See, I didn't really mind the blues influence. What I ranked this one at the bottom mostly for the mix. That just I thought it had a good bass line. That was pretty cool, but the compression on the drums are just like everything was squashed until it was distorting. I think the biggest thing I disliked about this album was that just
It's kind of like Tales of a Scorched Earth.
well produced.
It's just, it's heavy and lo-fi, dude.
Right. That's good Sexy Times music, is just heavy lo-fi. Get like a Monarch cover of an Al Green album. Yes.
So here's what I'll say about this. We were talking about blues on that Pot of Thunder tribute episode, and I want to make a little correction to Steve Edwards, who isn't here to defend himself, saying that the blues was all about how my baby left him and didn't have the stupid macho charisma, swagger, I'm so awesome of rock music. No, that's where it came from. The blues was very misogynistic, very violent. It had a lot of the same trappings and violence of rock music.
Absolutely.
So to say that, the blues is so much classier than rock is just not actually a true statement. It is just as problematic and also just as awesome. Now that said, what works for me about this song is that, as a rock guy, this is the closest to a rock song on the album where, the guitar tone is heavier, the drums with all that compression makes them sound heavier. And so it's kind of has like a almost in terms of production, like lo-fi 60s rock, like Cream, Hendrix kind of vibe to it. It's much slower than a lot of their songs, but it has this heaviness to it that I just view as like, here's just a cool, slow rock song. And I like that it's just a lo-fi rock song with a really good vocal, unlike the Smashing Pumpkins lo-fi rock song where Billy Corgan was screaming and those frequencies hurt my ears. I didn't have frequencies hurting my ears on this track. It was just pleasant.
Yeah, let's talk about the production of this record here for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Willie Mitchell ran the High Records label and produced pretty much everything that came out on High Records, including this record. And Willie has a really distinctive production style. There's virtually no reverb or even room sound on any of the tracks.
Yeah.
I always equate it to like listening to a band in your closet, in like your bedroom closet. You're in there with the whole band in this incredibly tiny space, and it's so intimate, it's so close. And then Al Green's vocal style, which, he's not a belter like a Wilson Pickett. He's half of his vocals are whispered almost, or sung very soft. So you've got this guy who sounds like he's whispering in your ear, virtually singing right next to your ear, and the band it's so tight and close mic'd, and
There was a
just,
trumpet planted on the side of your head.
Yeah, and and again, when you talk about the way these things were mixed, no, they're not really mixed for headphones. Mostly these records were mixed for two things. One, like you talked about, is just to sound good on a stereo, and two is to sound good on AM radio, because that is the era we're talking about,
Right.
where that your money was made by getting singles played mostly on AM radio, and it's 90% of your frequencies get lost on AM radio. But yeah, there's just something very intimate, I find anyway, about all of Willie Mitchell's production styles. And you can listen to records by Ann Peebles. She's another great soul singer that he did records for, and her records, they sound very much the same. It's just very intimate, very close, like you're just in this tiny space with the band. And I really like that about these records, but it's distinctive, and you don't find that sound on most other soul records that either they have the reverb or they have the sound of the studio in there, and you just don't get that on these records.
I was wondering about that, especially the brass was really sticking out to me as, super close feeling.
Right, everything, the brass, the drums, the guitars are very clean. There's really no distorted guitars. It's just this very tight, I keep using the word tight, but I don't know, I can't think of a better word to explain just how this stuff is all really compact in a tight little space.
I mean, it makes it very unique sounding. And I'll admit, the first time I heard it, I wasn't sure what to make of it. It kind of threw me off. As you know, I'm going back in time and discovering these records. They were not contemporary releases for me. This was, people telling me, hey man, listen to this shit, and you don't know what you're talking about. And so when I compare it to the production of, let's say, like a Rock and Roll Over by Kiss, something I was listening to at the same time, very crisp, very distinct, nowhere near as intimate and close. And so this is, worlds apart, like the compression on the brass and how distorted some of the stuff sounds. It's a very different kind of record. But that said, I once I learned to appreciate the style, sort of in the same way where I learned to appreciate the production of the Smashing Pumpkins records and the production of the Green Day Dookie album, it's something that I had to give myself a little bit of time to learn how to listen to it. But once I did, man, fell in love with it. And I mean, production wise, it ain't no fun to me. I mean, that's probably, I think, in terms of production, I think this is my favorite sounding track. But also it's because I'm looking at this as a rock guy. Even though I like soul, like, my heart, resides with rock music. So I'm like, yeah, the rock song. Hell yeah, play it, brother.
Yeah, sure. I mean, rock is still number one for me. But one of the things when you're coming from a a rock orientation, this record is counterintuitive in a lot of ways, and that with rock records over time from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they got bigger and bigger sounding until you got just to the ridiculous 80s records with so much reverb, and every snare hit sounds like a cannon being fired, right?
Man, that was awesome.
Whereas this record is the
Are you saying you don't
opposite
like
of that.
Creatures of the Night, bro?
I did. Well, that's a great record, but and that sound fits that material, right? But when you get into this record in Willie Mitchell's style, it's almost closer to maybe doing a folk record, in that you're going for that intimacy rather than that larger than life sound. And you just have to orientate yourself for that if you're kind of used to listening to Creatures of the Night.
Yeah, right. Or if you're used to listening to Sum 41 and Celine Dion.
Celine Dion with her snare drums like cannons.
I mean, dude, you've heard It's All Coming Back to Me Now. That's a Steinman production.
Yeah.
All right, so are we ready to move on to the next song, gentlemen?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so next up on the list, Steve's favorite song title from the album.
Yeah.
I've never found a girl, parentheses, who loves me like you do, end parentheses.
I just love that title. Like, how have you've never found a girl? Bro, they're everywhere.
Well, he's saying he's never found a girl who loves him as much as this girl does, where the love feels this pure and true. This is a romantic record. This is the kind of record you put on with your lady, and she just melts like the text on the front cover, which always looked like a bad Halloween horror thing instead of anything sexy. Awkward album cover. But yeah,
It's true. It is an awkward album cover. That expression on his face where he's like, what's going on? Huh?
Well, the history of awkward album covers, this isn't anywhere near the worst if you really want to get into it. But it's not a great record cover. I don't think they spent a lot of money designing record covers for high records. Never found a girl who loves me like you do. This is one of my least favorite tracks in the record. I think I had this number 7. It's one of the 2 tracks that was not written by Al Green. It's Booker T. Jones, Eddie Floyd, and I think it's Albertus Isabel, or Isbell wrote this track. It's the most disco song on the record, which is probably why I'm not crazy about it. One thing that kind of interested me about it is I think the backing vocals are all male, whereas most of the other tracks, it's a mix of male and female backing vocals. I wonder if that's just because of the title of the song. What they're singing fits more of a male perspective. But, not a favorite track of mine.
See, I think this one is really essential to the album because it's something more driving and upbeat. I don't think it goes full disco. I think this is more.
No, it's early. It's too early to be disco, but you can see where disco is going, right? With this track presaged. As
it is right before the
tracks
Bee
at
Gees
time.
cut, so I mean, it obviously makes sense. But to me, this is more. It's more Motown than disco. Where I hear Motown, I don't hear disco at all on the track. I hear, driving bass line, up tempo. As up-tempo as this record's going to get. And so for me, I think it's just it's a great up-tempo kind of Motown-y song more than a disco song. It's what I hear from the track. Steve, what do you hear in this one?
I mean, I heard much the same as the rest of the album, just with a hilarious title. I think, so there were only really 2 songs that really stood out to me on this album, and I ranked this one right after those 2. So I put it third. Got a good title. I guess, it's higher energy because it's the side 2 opener, which is how you arrange things traditionally on records. But yeah, nothing really to say about it.
I guess I'll just leave you to all the drops this episode. But hey, you've listened to this one more than you've listened to most of the Kiss records because you listened to it more than once.
Right? May have been an
Yeah.
accident, but I did listen twice.
I don't know. For me, it's another example of a great song on a great record. I will say this is sort of, I would also to compare this to Rock and Roll Over, where a lot of the album kind of flows together, and it can be kind of hard to notice the subtle differences in the songs because this album does have such a distinct style. And the songs can flow together very easily, where it's not like the Kiss album Destroyer, each song feels distinct and different from the others, and they don't flow together, and each song is like, boom, here's this, boom, here's this, boom, here's this. This one, much like Rock and Roll Over, much like Gish, flows together and has sort of one cohesive sound, and it's really only upon listening to it a bunch of times where you're really noticing, the differences between the cuts and really appreciating the differences between the cuts, aside from the, couple standouts, which we'll get to later. But I still think it's a great song, and as someone who was never super impressed with Al Green as a writer, I don't mind him bringing in outside songwriters on his stuff, because I think he's, much in the same way that, hey, Meatloaf wrote a couple songs himself, and as much as I like Midnight at the Lost and Found and Blind Before I Stop, look, it's all about him getting other songwriters like Jim Steinman and Nikki Sixx and James Michael and Desmond Child to write for him. So that's what my thought is on this track. Great tune, good momentum builder for the album. Any other comments on this one before we move on?
Now let's move on.
All right, so next up on the list, we have What Is This Feeling? As we're talking about the album being kind of similar, these two songs are actually pretty similar in terms of the driving nature of the song, sort of a little bit more up-tempo. I think this one has a better verse melody than the previous song we discussed, but also a weaker chorus melody than the last song we discussed. But
you keep on alluding to the songs. Did you forget what it's called already, Greg?
no, What Is This Feeling is the one we're talking about, and that I've Never Found a Girl was the song we were just talking about. But that's what I'm saying. Like this one, really, great, great verse melodies, but not as strong of a chorus melody as the other song that we were just talking. As I've Never Found a Girl. I know what songs we're talking about, Steve.
I had the song right in the middle of my list, so it's not my least or most favorite track. One thing about this one is it's got a really interesting drum beat. I have an excerpt queued up here. I don't know if you guys are going to hear this, but let's play a little bit of it.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Technology.
I mean, I know what the song sounds like, so yeah.
Yeah, but there's an it's not your straight 2 and 4 on the snare kind of beat, and to me that's the most interesting thing about the track. Also, the horn section really reminds me a lot of Chicago. I think they nicked a lot of their approach to arranging horns from tracks like this. That's all I got.
The horns were this was the one where I was really noticing that these horns are way too close to my head. I mean, obviously,
they're particularly loud on this track.
Obviously, it would sound better on a stereo where you're going to have actual room noise from the room you're listening to, rather than my headphones in the noisy office.
Yeah,
Right.
and a lot of these records were EQ'd for AM radio, so they accentuate frequencies that can be pretty harsh, particularly if you're listening to them on earbuds. But really, no one should listen to any music on earbuds. Buy a decent pair of headphones.
I
people.
have nice headphones. I don't use earbuds pretty much ever, but
Yeah, earbuds are pretty terrible. I don't
They're
need
the
them.
worst.
right. I like my music to sound bad and my ears to be uncomfortable while I listen to it.
Exactly. What's not to love about that? Yes, people, go out and buy yourself a decent pair of headphones.
Yeah, I don't even. I think one year I got a pair of Kiss earbuds as a gift. I'm like, man, I'm not going to use these.
Mm,
I'm not that desperate.
you can leave them in the box. It'll be a collector's
They're a
item.
collectible. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I have plenty of Kiss collectibles as we've discussed in the past. So Any other comments on what is this feeling before we move on?
Nope.
Nope.
All right. So next up on the list, we have Steve's favorite cut from the album. I'm going to let Steve go first on this. We've got So You're Leaving next on the list.
So this was one of the ones that actually stood out to me as like it didn't feel like the rest of the album. There were some really interesting chord progressions and change-ups on this one that like nothing surprised me on the rest of the album. Like everything just seemed to flow logically in a progression that, you know, makes sense, which yeah, that's absolutely a legitimate way to make an album, but not necessarily an interesting way to make an album to me. This was, I think, the one that was the most interesting and had the most spots where it was like, oh, I did not see that chord change coming. Neat.
And that is why this track actually frustrates me, because to me...
I can't make love while surprised.
Well, to me, this one is the one that feels the most like a filler composition. And, you know, this is me coming from a rock background. What I've noticed, you know, when you listen to a great rock album, you can often tell which songs were the singles and which songs were the filler tracks. And typically, a lot of those filler tracks would have like a really great verse melody and then a less melodic chorus that felt like they just kind of threw it together with the title. So like, you know, there's the Journey album Escape. Basically, the songs that aren't singles on that album are all terrible. It's like there's no distinction between the A+ songs and the F songs on Escape. Like, and so for me, you know, this is much better than those filler songs on Escape. But to me, when a artist does this kind of a chorus, to me, it really feels like filler song. Hey, let me do something weirder with the chords, make it less melodic. It's just something I've noticed with a lot of filler material, and it just screams, hey, this is a filler song, this song isn't important. And I've always liked those songs less. However, the verse melody in this song is perhaps the second best verse melody on the record. It's really fantastic, and it's still a good chorus, and I still like it. But it just, to me, it feels like a filler song. I just instinctually feel filler track from this. And even though I like this filler track, it's not going to compete with what I feel are some of the truly great tracks in this album. But I will say that verse melody is amazing. Like, so good.
One man's filler track is another man's deep cut.
I mean,
Well,
no,
there you go. That's true.
And hey, it's a great deep cut, but to me, I recognize just from a composition standpoint, I guess like as a songwriter, it kind of annoys me. I'm like, I see what you did here, and I know you're being kind of lazy about it, but I still like it, even though I know you're being lazy.
Al Green's all killer, no filler.
Well, I had this number 4 on my list, although I could easily have put it at number 3. So it's a track I like quite a bit. It is an Al Green composition. I think it's the funkiest track on the record. They do that classic funk thing of where there's heavy accent on the 1 of each measure. And I love in the chorus, the great Teenie Hodges on guitar does this accent on the 2. And I'm going to try to play another clip here that you guys aren't going to hear, but we'll get it in there.
It'll be in the final episode.
So that 1, chink, through 4, 1, chink. There's just this great little guitar accent in there that I just dig. That works for me. It's a great horn chart. I love the kind of wordless vocal section about 1:45 into it. You can really hear that guitar accent at that point. Let's see if I can cue that up. Another thing you guys won't hear.
I think you just singing those parts is probably the way to go with
it. Anyway, I did this track, so there.
Yeah, hey, once again, to me, it's, you know, it's like the Black Sabbath song Paranoid has a lot of markers of being a filler track where, you know, just in terms of composition, how it was made, it was meant to be a filler song and then somehow ended up being good.
ended up being the title track and the single.
Yeah, but it was the last song added to the album because they were short on songs. Like, quick, just come up with a riff and just put it on there. And
Sometimes that's when you come up with your best stuff.
Right?
Right. But like in terms of composition, it's like a lot of filler songs are like, fast, riff based, not a lot of changes, like, kind of short. Like Paranoid meets all those markers of a filler song, but just ended up being great. This song, checks all the boxes for a filler song, but still ends up being great. In my opinion. But yeah, are we ready to move on to the number 2 song on the album?
Do it.
So according to this panel, which includes Steve,
Yes, that's true.
the second best song on Let's Stay Together is the title track, Let's Stay Together. Because Steve is on this panel.
It's true. If I had put this anywhere near... Oh, you guys both ranked it number 1.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I think those... This is another example of just the mix doesn't age well. Those punchy horns were super abrasive.
This is a damn masterpiece, Steve.
I love everything about this song.
I feel like
So
if,
there.
if this album got completely re-recorded anytime within the last 20 years, I feel like I would have enjoyed it much more.
All right, so I don't even want to see, to me, and I'm sure to Brad, that's like horrifying you on like a deep visceral level. Just like
Yeah, it's like saying if you only painted the Mona Lisa in Photoshop today, it would be so much better.
Look, I'm saying if Leonardo da Vinci had a copy of Photoshop, think of the great things he would have
if
done
only
with it.
the Beatles had recorded with Pro Tools, how much better would those records have been?
Right? Yeah, if they had 96 tracks to do Sgt. Pepper instead of 4. Yeah.
Yeah, probably, actually. They probably would have gone nuts. And...
Ugh. Killing me. You're killing me.
All right.
You guys are like two purists over here. I'd be like, technology should never advance.
No. I'm okay with technology advancing, but there comes a certain point where just the art is so good you don't want to touch it. And this is a damn masterpiece. Like for me, all right, this is, oh my goodness. If you are with your woman and this song comes on, goddamn. I mean, shit. Like this is a great with your lady kind of song. I cannot stress that enough to the podcast listeners out there. Look, you might think that you want to jam to Kiss Animalize, but your lady's not going to jam to Kiss Animalize with you, brother. No, it's Al Green. It's Let's Stay Together. This is what you play for your lady. This is...
Yeah, what song is more likely to get you in the sack? This song or Burn Bitch Burn? I mean, right. Let's be realistic on what women are looking for in music. We're really what most humans should be listening for in music. No, I really like this track. Right from the very beginning, you've got him whispering, "Let's stay together." Nothing more sexy than that. It's got this interesting... I kind of think of it as like a horse gallop beat that runs through the entire song. This sort of...
Oh, yeah, with the bongos? That's so great. It's like, it's smooth. This is a smooth song.
Yeah, that's an interesting touch that runs through the whole track. I really like the lyrics in this song because... I mean, right from that first line, "I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do is all right with me."
It's so tender. It's sweet.
It's and it's very mature in a both R&B, soul, rock. It's particularly from this period. There were no, now most of the artists we love are getting up there in age, so they often write more mature, Gene Simmons excluded. But for the era, this is a pretty mature song. The way he's talking about love and romance, it's not like that first date kind of love. This is a, like, we've been together for a long time and we're staying together, right? It's a song about commitment, and it's I just think it's a great song. It's one of those songs that the older you get, I think the more you appreciate it.
Yeah, so maybe Steve's not old enough for it.
Oh man, Steve.
Teenagers.
I'm younger than Steve, but I have the music taste of someone much older than him. So because of that, I love it. Like to me, like
You're also married,
I
so
am
like
also
the
married.
idea of like long-term relationship songs, yeah, of course that's going to be more appealing to you. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
But I loved this song in high school because just that melody. It's so.
You're also more of a romantic than me.
I am. That's true. But it's such a great vocal melody, just such great phrasing, tonality, instrumentation. We were talking about. I also love that Barack Obama sang a little bit of this song at one of his press conferences. And actually did a pretty decent job. Like, shit, Barry, sounding good on that Al Green. Sing a little bit more. So, like, this is such a great tune. It makes me so happy when I hear it. It puts me in a great mood. It's my favorite Al Green song. You know, I tend to like the deep cuts by my favorite artists. And I tend to not be like, oh yeah, the big hit is the best song. But like, for me, this is far and away the best song on the album. It is an all-time classic. I will admit, the first time I heard it, the production threw me off. I understand where Steve is coming from. As a fellow millennial, like, I get it. I get it. You're used to Avenged Sevenfold and Taking Back Sunday and that crisp, clear production. But you know what? This song just, there's something about it that touches my soul.
Look, I'm just saying, wouldn't you rather Barack Obama was singing cute
Burn, bitch,
without
burn.
No, I was going to say cute without the E from the team.
It's so emo. and I'm sorry, no. Like when Barry Obama pulled out "Let's Stay Together" at a press conference, my jaw dropped. But I was
It
like,
made
you
me
know,
smile.
then I immediately smiled like, damn, that is smooth. Like, that is so smooth.
I'm just excited for like 20 years from now when the second black president busts out some My Chemical Romance at a press conference.
But you know, here's what I'll say about I'm gonna get political for a second. You got Barack Obama singing Al Green so smooth, and then you got those videos of Donald Trump singing "We're Not Gonna Take It" with Twisted Sister, and his arms are at his side, and he is.
That's all you need to know.
And look,
That's all you need to know.
I think Twisted Sister is a great band. I love Dee Snider. I think he's a good dude, and I appreciate him distancing himself from Trump. But you got him at his arms at his side singing awkwardly, and then you got Barack Obama just like going for that melody so smooth.
Weird that a man who's been happily married for decades is able to really connect with a song about long-term relationships, and the man is unable to properly connect with a song about sticking it to the man.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Strange how that happened.
Yeah, this is a damn classic. You're wrong, Steve.
It is a great track. It's a great vocal performance. There's this little falsetto part he does about a minute and 3 seconds into the track.
Oh yeah,
It's
so
great.
good.
There's this little tom hit. It's like kind of comes out of nowhere like 3 times in the song, where just out of nowhere there's just sort of like a bump on the tom, and I dig that. I just dig everything about this song. It's just a great track. It's my number one favorite track on the record for sure.
But it didn't win. Let's go through the list from the bottom to the top to see what the winning track is. From least best to the best. La La for You. Judy. Old Time Lovin'. It Ain't No Fun to Me. I've never found a girl who loves me like you do. What is this feeling? So You're Leaving. Let's Stay Together, ranking number 2 for some reason. But the best song on the album, according to this panel, which includes Steve. How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?
So I've been demoted from, according to this expert panel, and Steve to, like, according to this panel, that somehow includes Steve. Wait, that actually sounds like a promotion. Hooray, I'm more expert.
Yes. I mean, look, you are a music expert. I will give you that. It's just your, how would I say, like, you know, it's like...
He's saying your taste sucks, Steve.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
It's like I'm FDR and you're like Trotsky. We're just like, you're
Wow.
You're
I
like-
didn't think we were going to go there.
like,
It's cold.
so that's what it is. Like, yeah, you're right about a lot of things, but also, you're a damn maniac.
No, look, this is a great track.
It is a great track, and all three of us voted it as the number 2 song. But
It's
as on
true.
other episodes, whatever rises to the top.
The middle
per map.
rises to the top.
Although
I
it's
I
high,
can't put up.
it's not even the middle. It's like the second best rises to the top.
Right.
I can't really, put up too much of a fight for putting this one first. It is a great track. I did a podcast episode on this particular song, so I love this song. It is by far the longest song on the record. It's 6 minutes and 19 seconds. That's almost twice as long as every other track on the record. Most of the
Okay.
songs on this record fall about 3 minutes, 3:15, 3:20, in that range. Again, you cutting songs for AM radio, you got to cut them short. So it's interesting that this song, at twice the length, was a big hit. Of course, it's one of 2 tracks not written by Al Green. It's a
Bee
Bee
Gees
Gees track. Yep. But I don't have a whole lot
which
more
explains
to
why
add
it's so
to it.
long, right? Like if you take a 3-minute disco song and you slow it down a bunch, you
So
get a 6-minute soul song.
I look, millennial kid. Let me school you there for a second.
School him. School
All right,
him.
look. The Bee Gees hadn't entered their disco era until after this album, sir. Before
right.
that, they were like a Beatles-esque pop band, primarily focused on ballads.
Oh, I know.
They were a lot less up-tempo. Dude, New York Mining Disaster, 1941. All-time classic, one of the best songs of all time.
I really only know the Chumbawamba version.
All right.
Ugh.
So as you continue to destroy my soul even more, I brought in a soul record to give you more soul, not to take away mine, Steve.
I'm going to keep
You're
referencing
hurting
random
our
Commonwealth
souls,
punk
Steve.
bands.
But I will say this. This is way better than the Bee Gees version. I like early Bee Gees a lot. And I like latter day Bee Gees a lot once they got into the disco era that they were most famous for. I like the Bee Gees. They're a great band. If you don't like the Bee Gees, you're or if you haven't given them a chance, you're missing out. There's a lot of great pop music in their catalog.
Yep.
But I think this is a much better arrangement than the Bee Gees version, which was like a decent ballad, but there was something missing from it. And it's hard to put my finger on it,
About
but
2.5 minutes.
well, it's maybe it's the sparseness of their production, where there's a lot of reverb on the Bee Gees version, and there's zero reverb on this. But I think I'm sensing more emotion and power from Al Green, and I think that soul edge to it. Just really, it helps the song truly shine out as the emotional piece that it is, where it gets lost in the shuffle of other Bee Gees ballads of the era, where you can replace it easily with a better song of theirs from that same era, versus here it's just something about the arrangement, the production, the vocal really helps it elevate to the next level. And it's also, for me, kind of proof of like what Al Green does with great material. I think a lot of the songs in the album are okay songs, but performed really well. This is a great song, and because he's an amazing performer, it just gets elevated to that next level.
Yeah, this is the perfect example of a great performer being matched with a great song, and it definitely elevates the whole record. It's a really strong song. I like the Bee Gees track too. It's just no diss to them. They wrote it. And they did a great version of it, but this is a case much like when Aretha Franklin would cover a song and she would own it for there ever after. You want to hear the best version of Respect, for example, you got to go to Aretha, right? Not the original Otis Redding song, as great as it was. And same case here, right? Al Green just owns this song. It's such a great vocal performance. The arrangement really fits his performance, and the lyrics. Everything kind of comes together. Just it's a masterpiece.
Steve, let me give you a reference your millennial mind will understand. It's like the Johnny Cash cover of Hurt. which is also great.
So I'm flipping through the Wikipedia and discovered that the year after this, Cher also covered this song. Maybe that's the version we should recognize as the canon.
No.
I think not.
And look, Cher is great. She has an excellent catalog. I'm not going to rag on Cher, but I mean, this is one of the best cuts in a catalog from a really great artist. Like
Yep.
it's you know, when you know did your episode on this song, it helped inspire me to like, you know what, we should do Let's Stay Together as an episode of our show, because we haven't really done any soul or R&B on this show, and that'd be good to do something different. You know,
Well,
unless
thanks.
you're counting the Peter Criss 78 solo album, Steve.
I was not.
That's my favorite Kiss solo album.
All
So
right,
there.
what's up? Virtual high five, man, right here. Right here.
I love that record.
It's a great
I love it.
record. For me, that is an example of people just like not having the musical background to appreciate what it is.
Well, let's take a detour for a second here.
Yeah, let's
because
do
you
it.
guys don't talk enough about Kiss on your podcast.
Of course not. They never get brought up in any other episodes that we do. Like, they're never mentioned in Smashing Pumpkins episodes all the time.
I can't believe we talk so much about Smashing Pumpkins on an Al Green episode, but that's a whole other topic.
When I think of things that are
When I-
similar to Al Green,
When I think of great vocalists similar to Al Green, my first thought is Billy Corgan.
Good Lord. So
well, my
when-
comprehensive list of things sexier than Al Green and less sexy than podcasting, definitely Billy Corgan
you know, one of the things that
with cats.
always kind of frustrated me about some Kiss fans is that they love Kiss to be in their small little Kiss box, and anytime they step outside of that and they do The Elder, or they do Carnival of Souls, or even
Unmasked.
Destroyer. Yeah, or Unmasked. Those are the least favorite Kiss records, but to me, they're like really interesting records. In some cases, they're great records. And Peter's record is the one that by far deviates the most from the Kiss formula. So yeah, if you want to hear, you know, Meathead rock, it's not the record for that. But I think he was the best vocalist in the band.
Virtual high five. In that era, I think Paul,
Right.
once he
I mean,
got to the
his voice,
80s,
not long after that, his voice was shot, but at that
Amongst
point,
other things.
he could sing the ballads, he could sing the rockers. He just sounded great. I think it's some great material on that record. It's completely underappreciated by fans who just want it to sound like Rock and Roll Over. But to me, the point of doing a solo, why do a solo album if it's going to sound exactly like your regular band records? You should go out as far on the fringe as you can go. Take some chances. Maybe they're not all successful, but at least you're trying something. And that's why I love that record. Anyway, back to Al Green.
yeah, back to Al Green. You know, as we're talking about an album that, you know, took some chances and did some different things, you know, this one, I can understand why you might not like this record, because there isn't a lot of dynamic contrast on this record. Like, as we're talking about appreciating albums where there's a lot more chances taken, this is very much sticking to one sound, which isn't a bad way to do an album. It might be a way to make an overall career less interesting. But, like, you know, AC/DC, where if you heard one AC/DC album, you kind of heard every single AC/DC album.
Yeah, this is definitely that kind of thing where it's AC/DC is a band that they've got their wheelhouse and they never strayed from it. And if you love it, you love it. You can rate the records, but frankly, like you said, there's a lot of similarity between all of their albums. I think that works for them. That makes them a great band. I think in this case, you've got a singer who has his wheelhouse and he's working it on this record. And if it's not your thing, then it's not your thing. But yeah, there's not a lot of chances taken here. There's no hard funk. There's no rock and roll. There's no
sweet guitar solos.
Right. There's no jazz, Frank Sinatra type stuff on here. This is soul music in its most pure form, I think. So again, if it works for you.
But, you know, it's the kind of record that you need, like, or some people might need. Like, you might need a record that has this vibe the whole way through, because that's what you need to hear right now. Different music for different parts of your life.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't all want all records to sound the same, right?
Absolutely not. But for me, this is This is a classic album. It's right up there with my favorite rock records. To me, it's an all-time classic. And to Steve, it's another boring record that Greg made him listen to.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hate it. It's just like it's not really. It's not something that I'm gonna seek out.
So is it better than Prince? Because you hate Prince.
It's true. I mean, yeah, Prince is a similar sort of. I tend to find his songs a little bit boring. I feel like Prince has a better command melody in his writing.
Yeah, Prince is definitely a better writer than Al Green. I think I think Brad, you'd agree with that too.
Sure.
You know, as evidenced by the fact that, you know, the song that we decided was the best song on this album was the
cover.
was the cover of the pop band, who, you know, later went on to be universally derided for being very good at writing pop songs in a genre that fell out of popularity for being too popular.
But, you know, hey, it's a great song. I would dare say that I'm in love with that song. Speaking of which, plugs. Brad, where can we find you on the internet?
Oddly enough, my podcast is called I'm in Love with That Song. Every episode I take a song that means something to me, and maybe it's a classic, maybe it's a song you never heard of before, but it's a song that means something to me, and I do a deep dive into it, kind of breaking apart the different elements that make the song work, at least make it work for me. So you can find the I'm in Love with That Song podcast on Stitcher, on iTunes, on Overcast, whatever the podcast player of your choice is. Just search for it. You can email me at I'm in love with that song podcast at gmail.com or find me on Facebook. Thank you.
And Steve, where can you find us on the internet?
You can find us at lipstickgeneration.com and on most other platforms as Lipstick Generation.
Because we lost a battle with SEO. Band's called Lipstick, but, you know...
somebody already had lipstick.com, weirdly.
Someone had
Who would
Lipstick.
have thunk it?
Who would have thunk? So, yeah, that's my fault for being stuck in the 70s. That's one of the cases where my millennial pal was right.
That's okay. You wouldn't have been able to get lipstick.com in the 70s either.
That's true. All right, well, that's our show, folks. Have a good one. Peace.
Well, that would be my my demographic. So that's me, old people.
It's hard for me to relate to millennials because they're just like, check out this mumble rap, and I'm like, check out this 70s progressive glam band.
Right.
We just it's a lot of butting heads.